Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the NARPM podcast. I'm your host, Pete Neubig, the voice of NARPM. And like I say, every week we got another great show. Stacy Salyer is here. Stacy is a property management acquisition strategist and the founder of Slayer's Built to Acquire, trademark, where she teaches property management owners how to grow through strategic acquisition, not door-by-door grind. With over 20 years in property management, 20 years experience in property management, Stacy's been on all sides of the M&A table. She built her first PM company from her living room as a single mother. I actually did hear that story when you were on stage, and that's a great story. She acquired a 350 door competitor with seller financing during COVID, sold for seven figures in 2022, and served as director of acquisitions at Pure Property Management. So she's bought, she's sold, she's helped other people buy. She's evaluated 100 plus companies nationally and ran operations across multiple states. She also hosts the Stacy Salyer Show podcast, which I will be on one of these days. And she is a sought after speaker, and she has spoken a lot of times at NARPM. Stacy, that was a mouthful, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I know it is a mouthful, especially that acquisition strategist. So yes.
So let me talk a little bit about this. So you hit a nail on the head with that little intro here. When people hear acquiring, a lot of times they just roll their eyes back and like they kind of don't think about it because like, oh, that's for the Pures, the Evernest, the big guys, right? They automatically the big guys, but you actually teach that it's not just for the big guys. So let's talk about the process that needs to happen for someone who's listening to even begin about thinking about acquiring.
Right. Yeah, no, well, yes. And thank you so much for having me on. So I would say, first of all, it really starts with mindset. Back in the day when I had my first conversation, that was 2019, late 2019, I had a conversation with a local attorney, said, hey, I'm looking to grow if you know anybody. And honestly, at the time I was thinking that door by door growth, right? Like, because eviction attorneys help all clients. And he was like, oh, so you're looking to grow your business? Well, I actually know a guy that's looking to sell his company. And I instantly thought, oh my gosh, I'm still a single mom of three and I don't really have a lot of money. I don't know that I'm really that person. I mean, this is in my head, but of course out loud I said, oh yeah, of course. I would love to talk to that guy. I could buy his business, not knowing anything. So I think, for me, it's really about teaching people mindset to begin with, as far as like, hey, let's get past those myths and let's get past your objections that are in your head. Because I think we're all really good at creating stories. I mean, we still do it, right? You might hear something and you create this story in your head about what isn't even really true. So that's what we focus on is that. And then of course, all the tactical stuff in between. So
that's, I actually went through that same thing. And what I've found is if you're not ready mentally, you will look at everything on that deal to kill it. Like you become analysis paralysis. Almost like when you buy your first real estate, as a real estate investor, if I didn't have my mentor, the first mentor to ever help me buy a property, if I didn't have him, I don't think I'd own a piece of property yet. You know what I'm saying? Because I would have it's analysis paralysis. Exactly. And then once you buy 100 of them, you're like, yeah, okay, like whatever. Like I know the numbers here and we're going to go buy the property.
That's okay. Yep. You're back.
All right. So we'll cut this. So anyway, so analysis process, I go buy 100 properties and no problem now. So that's where you come in, right? Like that mentor to kind of help me if I was looking at selling or buying a property management firm, to help me like guide me through that process in a way.
Absolutely. And that is kind of the same thing. And it is, I mean, you just did a great explanation of that. So I'm basically your coach. I've called myself like the Sherpa, whatever, right? Like your guide, get you to the top of Mount Everest, give you your oxygen when I know you need it. Because there are a lot of fine details. I think online you see a lot of what's the multiple? What's that? Well, that is literally the least important thing in what like the whole entire process, in my opinion. There's so many other fine details of, what to look for. I mean, how to even go out and find who might be selling their business or might be interested in selling their business to. Then, okay, well, let's take a look at the conversation. Like, should you be asking? What kind of things should you be talking about? What should you kind of like
So
be
let's
structured?
take all those. You got a lot there. So
Yep.
first is, what do I like if I am even considering buying a property management firm? What do I need to do before that even? Like, do I need to have my PM firm running pretty efficiently? I would think so. Like what are some, do you have like a pre-checklist? Like you have to have your house in order first, no?
Well, okay, so that's actually a really good question, and I would say yes. Okay. Yes. Stacy says, yes, you probably should. However, I actually have three different people, like avatars that I work with. So one, of course, is a property management business owner. And if you already own a PMC, then yes, you should probably have some good operations going, because you're going to go out and buy something and you're going to dump on top of what you already own.
Right.
There's
Right.
two other avatars that I work with as well, would be like maybe a self-managing landlord who already manages 10, 20, and they want to go buy a PMC. That particular avatar is going to need to find probably a better run company to purchase. And then the third would just be a pure investor. Again, they're going to need to probably find an A plus company. But that, who we're speaking to now are NARPM members. Yes, you want to make sure your operations are good, and you have bandwidth within your company. You personally have some bandwidth, so that way you have time to go out and do these deals. But
Okay. Now let's talk about financially.
yes,
Do you have to have a bunch of money, like if
no,
you're going to buy something? Okay.
no, you
That
don't,
was
and
always my big thing. Okay. So
yeah,
talk to
that's
me
one of
about,
the myths. Yeah, that's one of the myths I'd love to dispel. So again, remember, I did my first, acquisition in 2020, right at the start of COVID, and it was a little over 350 doors. I did seller, I had the seller do financing, and I put very little money down. I didn't have a ton of money. I mean, I had some because I did have a cash producing PMC at the time, but I didn't have millions. I didn't have PE money. I didn't have VC. I wasn't VC backed. So you can definitely do that. There's so many strategic ways you can, um, you know,
what's in it for the seller? Like, a lot of times, like we have this mindset where the seller wants all his money right away. There are reasons why a seller would take on seller financing, right?
oh, absolutely. So one of my sound bites is actually, while boomers retire, you acquire. And I find that our boomer sellers actually generally prefer to finance the deal, like hold the note, because of tax implementation.
That's
Oh
right.
my God, cut that part. Because of taxes and all that kind of good stuff.
That's right.
So
They're not getting all that money in one chunk, and they got to pay a huge tax on it.
right, right. But again, it really just goes back to mindset. So I find that if you are telling yourself stories of, oh, it's not going to work because of this, or it's not going to be work because of that, well, you really need to kind of get past that. And I'm really working hard to dispel all the myths in the industry and then say, hey, come into my world and let me teach you then all the kind of the, tactical stuff in the beginning, the messy middle, and then close it up.
And I would think that I'm going to reach out to you prior to even me finding, like, if
Oh,
something
yeah.
jumps in my lap, yeah, I'm going to call Stacy, like, hey, walk me through this. But if even then, if I'm even like considering this, I should probably call you to get my management company set up, my financial set up, and my mindset set up, right? So now I can actually feel confident. And then I can, when something does come in my lap or I'm looking for it, and I can find somebody, and then the chance of that going through becomes much greater. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So, all right. So now I got my mindset. We understand that you don't need all this money to dump up front, that people actually would like to defer taxes and also get cash flow for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, even.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so the people who are selling would love to get cash flow so that they can go live their life and not have to worry about, now what are they going to do with all this big money, right?
Right.
That was a big problem that I had when I sold. Like, I'm like, okay, I got money now. I got to make it. I got to put to work like right away, and
Right.
and, and I had to pay a bunch of taxes, like just like you probably had to.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So now, where would I find some folks
Yes. This is
to acquire?
Yeah, this is a fun one. So, of course, you're going to have, I have what I call two lists. So, you're going to have your number one list, and that's kind of the obvious. Any property management company in your area, doesn't matter if you think that they're never going to sell, just add them to your list. I would say, go through Google or, search NARPM. I mean, there's, lots of places you can find anybody in your community. And then you really want to start working on your secondary list. I think that's a list that a lot of people don't think about is, maybe the realtors that might manage like 20 doors or 40 doors, whatever. The real estate brokerages in your market that kind of like what I say half manage property management companies. Like we all have them in our market. They're not very good. So add them to your list and then start adding other people to your list too, like CPAs, landlord tenant law attorneys. Maybe look at joining groups like Rotary or Kiwanis or, things like that where you can kind of dive into your community to network with other business owners because people know people. And it's really just about building relationships.
Got it. Okay, so now somebody comes knocking, or I'm guessing you're doing this like a drip campaign. It's not just like, hey, I want to buy something. If I really want to buy something, I'm going to make an effort. Like we're going to build drip campaigns. We're going to make some phone calls. We're going to make an effort here, right?
Yep.
But a lot of times you make no effort, and somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to sell." I actually had two opportunities to buy property management firms when I was at Empire, and I didn't have a Stacy, so neither one went anywhere because I did exactly what I said. I analysis paralysis to death, and I ended up not buying either one of them, which I think one of them would have been a good deal. The other one probably not so much, but one of them would have been a good deal. So, all right. So now something comes across here. How do I give me? I mean, obviously this could be a whole podcast itself, but give me high levels. What are the two or three things I should be looking at before I even like dive into the numbers?
Okay. Yeah. So before you even look at numbers, you really want to ask the seller, well, number one, why do you want to sell? That's going to give you a really good picture. And then two, how's their business set up? Is it a true boomer business where it's just them as the property manager and they have everything in their head? They have no processes. Maybe they have a couple employees. And then also what do they have employees or do they have anything documented? Maybe what kind of do they use SaaS products? Like if they do, what does that look like? And then of course, just door count and what because you can really learn a lot just by those basic questions.
And then just get a PMA, like see what the PMA, because we know a lot of these private management companies that are not using NARPM don't have any of the systems or a lot of the fees that
Oh, yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's not a bad thing. So again, I always say there are red flags, but even though if there's a red flag, it doesn't mean it's a no-go. It just means that that's a like, hey, stop, and then let's do some evaluation and take a look at did that work for you or not. There's green, yellow, and red. Red doesn't mean like, oh, just dump it in the trash. It just means, well, okay, is that going to actually work for you? Because the business I bought, remember, like 350 doors, it was the seller and a bookkeeper and
Wow, 350 doors, one
yeah,
person and a bookkeeper.
yes, his PMA was 2 pages. I don't even know if it was actually a full 2 pages. So I looked at that though. Some people may have said, "Oh my gosh, that sounds like a mess. That sounds like a lot of work." And I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of work, but I knew what my dollar per door was on what I currently was managing, and I looked at that count and I thought, "Oh wow, I have some major opportunity to take the revenue that I'm buying because I was still buying revenue and then like, double, triple it, right? Based on what he was doing. So he only had a management fee and a lease up fee.
Explain that a little bit more, buying revenue, because I think that's really important that people understand that.
Yes. So, I mean, even though he only had a lease up fee and a management fee, I mean, he was still making money every month. In fact, I mean, of course, he didn't have any major payroll really, right? I mean, bookkeeper and himself, if he was paying himself. But, you're basically buying cash. That's what I tell people. It's like you're going to have your payment. So you're going to have your payment to the seller. And then, of course, if you already own a property management company and you have some good systems and processes and some SaaS products and maybe some team members, you can easily look at that and say, oh, okay, well, I can take those and put that into my company. And I'm going to only be spending, maybe I'll just take a number like, let's say 5,000. Maybe I'm spending 5,000 for my monthly payment. And then that leaves me 30,000 that I'm still making a month on
Right.
top of
And then the majority of that, it gets absorbed with your current
it. Mhm.
staff, team, software, and that 30 grand may cost you another 10, right?
Right.
You know, so
Right.
so you're making money on the investment. It's very simple to buying a rental property, right?
Yeah.
I borrowed this much money at this percent. This is my P&I. This is the rent minus some, whatever expense, some other expenses, and then this is how much money I make. It's just bigger dollars
Yeah.
typically.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just another way to invest. And, it's really kind of once you do one, it really kind of becomes addictive. I will say most of the people that I know that have bought at least one PMC, they've bought multiple because it's just like investing on steroids. So instead of buying like one rental, you're buying another, like you're buying a business. And to me, it's super fun and it's a great way to grow your wealth.
Do you use different methods of acquiring for different levels of like door count? Like somebody with 20 doors, would I use a different solution than somebody with 350 doors? Or could it be one size fit all, or is it just everything is case by case and everything is it depends?
Yeah, I mean everything's kind of case by case, but I mean 20 doors would be pretty easy. That's a pretty easy. Like that's just kind of like roll
So,
in to
so
the house.
take me through that. So I have a realtor, 20 doors, comes to me tomorrow, says, "Hey Pete, I got 20 doors. Does Texas Lone Star Property Management want to take these on?" All right. So I called Stacy. I said, "Hey man, I need some help mentally. Let's get this going." And then what do we do for those 20 doors?
Yep. I mean, as far as the process, yes, you're going to still do the same process. Like you still want to do due diligence. You want to make sure that you're structuring it correctly. But I think what would probably be the biggest difference would be like the payout type part of it. You may just end up paying them the whole amount, probably because it's not going to be that much compared to, 350 doors. You may structure it to where it's like more referral fee. I mean, you could do so many different things in your contract. But you still want to make sure you're doing your due diligence. And I would still recommend a clawback
Okay.
regardless of the door count.
Yep, that was where I was going next. So, all right. So, yeah, with 20 doors, I could probably just scratch a check.
Yeah.
But if I do that, I still want to do like one or two payments, right? Hey, I'll scratch a check and then like 90 days later or 6 months later, if everybody stays, I'll scratch another check, something like
Yep.
that. So, a clawback is when you buy a property management firm and then a door doesn't stay over a certain period of time, like the clawback time. And then what happens is the seller will claw back funds
Right.
because that door is no longer being managed, right?
Correct. Yep.
The buyer would be.
Yes. Yes. The buyer. Yes. And everything's spelled out in the contract. So let's say each door is worth 2,000, then you would claw back
So
2,000.
what are the biggest challenges you've seen on when somebody takes over a property management company, somebody buys it? What's the biggest reason for churn in that, what is a typical clawback timeline?
Typical is, I mean, again, everything is negotiable, but
Sure.
typical is 6 months. I mean, as a buyer, if you could get 12 months, that would be amazing. Most sellers won't do that, but you never know. The
6 months.
biggest,
Yeah. So
yeah.
then what's the biggest reason for like I buy, 100 properties and 6 months later I got 80 left, 20 left me, right? 80 of them stayed with me, 20 left. What's the main reason why those 20 would leave?
Probably not being very strategic on the front end. So you need to be really strategic and very clear with the process of like who's going to be doing what between the buyer and seller. So if the seller isn't on board with a really good transition period, that could really wreck your process. If the buyer is being too aggressive with the new contracts, that could not go very well. So, I usually say, hey, well, bring them in, kind of fold them into what you're doing, but you don't want to just immediately like change fees and, change up their lives, like the clients' lives, because they're used to a certain way.
Especially if it was a 2-page contract, then you go to a 12-page contract, right?
Yeah, that yeah, yeah. And I had a specific strategy on how I did mine. And again, it worked pretty well for me, but so you just really have to really pre-think kind of like what could happen. And that is where I wouldn't say that, you focus on stories, but you do focus on particular landmines that could happen. And so that's where, like, when I'm working with people, I can help them think through that process.
So the most successful transactions has the seller kind of involved,
Hmm.
a defined involvement
Yes.
to help with the handoff, and then the buyer not changing anything right away. So how long, like if let's say in this case you got the 2-pager, how long did you run that 2-pager for before you started making changes, and what were some of the changes that you had to make just to survive to make sure that they made money for you?
Yeah. So I did that one a little bit different. I actually bought the corporation. So I bought that as a stock
Okay.
purchase, because of the way that he had it set up. Those that 2-pager wasn't really assignable, and it was just a strategic thing that I did. And what I did was, I got the seller to be very involved in the transition, and so he would make phone calls. We just kind of did it like month by month. I didn't move everybody over, but what I essentially did was I had I had my own contract under Leading Edge, and then I modified that to mirror ish his contract. I mean, my contract was still longer, but I didn't. The biggest thing was I didn't change the fees. Now, what I did do though is I went and I had conversations, especially with like kind of the bigger players. So you really want to look at, okay, well, who owns more? Like what, I mean, there's a lot of strategy behind that. But I did say, hey, this is at Leading Edge, this is what we do offer our current clients. Would you like us to do a yearly inspection on your property? This is exactly what it looks like. And this is what we charge for it. And so they could opt in. So I had an addendum. So I was able to make more money kind of immediately, without changing fees immediately. And then I just moved them over to my company. And then I eventually closed out that other company.
Yeah. So basically, lots of communication. Don't
Yes.
make drastic changes, especially to what they're paying for. Create some add-ons, build that trust over time, and then my assumption is probably after about a year or so,
Mm-hmm.
they started going on your
Yep.
your typical pay structure and your lease because now they've built some trust.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
All right. All right. So now I'm doing this. I'm buying the property management firm. I got the I know what the clawback is.
Yep.
You said something about assignment of contracts. So let's
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about that, right? And then you also talked about you can buy contracts or you can buy the corporation. So let's talk about the two differences there on first, let's do assignment of contracts. So in certain states, some of the contracts are not assignable.
Correct.
Texas for one.
Texas, I think, is one. Yep.
So what happened? Like, so talk about that. Like, what a good strategy is for stuff that's not assignable. Because now I have to get them to sign a new PMA, right?
Yep. Yep. I mean, really, that's where you really need to have a good relationship with the seller. I mean, the buyer and seller really are going to have to work together. Um,
Could
but
you even could you even in some cases have the seller send them the new PMA, like with a new company name, or is that the buyer's responsibility? You think, or is it just all again depends?
I think it just all depends
Okay.
on how you want to do it. I think in the case where I think the seller, the more that the seller can be on board to talk up the new buyer, the better, of course. And it's really a win-win for the seller, because if you have a clawback, right now I kind of get all confused. I'm like who's on what base, right? Um,
Who's the first?
yeah, right. But yeah, really it's just that good relationship. So I think but that goes back to the very, very beginning of building that relationship. It's not just you know,
Right.
like a
Now,
time.
if the contract is assignable, it makes things a lot easier.
Oh,
Correct?
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
So you should look at your state to see if the contract is assignable.
Right.
Um, because then they just assign it under, in this case, leading edge.
Right.
It's done.
Right.
So if it's not assignable and it's a bigger deal, you may want to buy the whole corporation, like Stacy, like you did. So now
Yes.
let's talk about that. What's the main reason why you would not or you would buy a corporation?
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of talk out there and advice to say, no, don't do that. I mean, obviously you're buying the whole thing, right? I mean, so you're buying all the history of everything,
That's the main thing, the history, because
right?
somebody can turn around and sue you. I think what do you have, 7 years in certain states to sue somebody in for real estate. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So, but I guess you roll the dice. I mean, anytime you're in business and if you're a true entrepreneur, I mean, you're always rolling the dice like every day. So,
Mhm.
you just got to roll it and
Yeah.
hopefully it works out.
So if you could buy the corporation, you would let me say this. You would suggest potentially buying the corporation if a contracts weren't assignable. That makes it easy. I don't have to sign the contracts, and
That,
it helps me on the back end.
that does make it easy.
Mhm.
Also, too, like let's say you're a smaller operation. Let's say you're a smaller PMC, but you have a vision, and maybe somebody wants to sell their company, and they're a well-run company. Maybe they already have some staff, and they've got all the things. Then maybe it makes more sense to buy the
The
corporation.
corporation, and then you have their website, and you have their
Yeah.
history and all that good stuff. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So there's really no technically right or wrong. I mean, I know out there usually people will say it's wrong to buy a corporation, but that's not necessarily correct.
I'll give you a bit of inside baseball here.
Yes, please do.
And we'll go deep into this in your podcast. When I sold Empire, they were adamant that they did not want to build a corporate. They did not want to buy the corporation. That they did buy the agreements, and it was a pain in the butt to get them all assigned. And think if they didn't get assigned over a certain point of time, they just agreed. Like we put something out there, like you agree that it's under the new PMA or something like that. But what was it? It was 2 years later. I get a doorbell ring, and I
Mm.
open it, and I got served with papers. And it was from Empire. It was a resident, and I got sued for $1 million.
Oh,
To
lovely.
be continued on Stacy Salyer's podcast.
Yes, yes, we will definitely have to go dive deeper into that. And one thing that people don't talk a lot about is insurance and making sure that you're carrying a tail and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, you just hit the punchline. Did
Okay.
not have to
Well,
pay.
don't say that because they're going to have to come listen to the lore. If you guys want the lore, the real deal, then you're going to have to come listen to Pete on the Stacy Salyer
Yeah.
show.
But
Yeah.
but really important on the seller side, right? When you do sell, you want to make sure that you are covered with insurance over there. All right. So what are some other? I mean, we touched really high level
Right.
on a lot of stuff. Is there anything else? We got a couple more minutes here. Is there anything else that you can think of that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
Ooh, well, I mean, we just kind of touched on insurance a little bit. I think the
Oh,
biggest, oh,
got
yeah,
another question.
okay.
Is there somebody that would lend money? Are there lenders out there for buying property management businesses?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite ones, they're NARPM partners, Live Oak Bank, Jordan Coleman. In fact, she's been on my show recently. You guys can go download that episode and listen. And yeah, they do. They actually specialize in lending for property management companies.
See, I didn't. I'm today's years old when I learned that, and
Oh, you did
I
not?
probably should have known that. No, I didn't. I didn't. I thought you
Oh,
were like a regular bank. So the banks that specialize. So not to throw shade here, but Enterprise, does Enterprise do that as well? Enterprise Bank or
I they may. I think they might. I'm not really sure. But yeah, and then of course you can get an SBA loan from a local bank or other banks as well. I mean, I work with Jordan.
interesting. With the folks that you've worked with, what's typically down payment? Is it like buying a house, like 20% down, or again everything's negotiable, or like just
Negotiable.
yeah,
Yeah, when I bought mine, I put 6% down.
6%. And Live Bank doesn't care. Like they don't force you to put 20% down or anything like that.
Well, okay, so I did seller financing. Yeah. So as
When
far
you
as
do seller financing, then you can do anything.
yeah, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's the wild, wild west. Yeah, but as far as the bank, I mean, the bank is going to have different qualifications or parameters, but I don't know that they have a specific amount you have to put down. I mean, they're going to look at everything. They're going to look at your business. They're going to look at the business you're buying. They're going to look at all the debt service and cash flow
Right.
and all those numbers that Jordan can explain. That's not my area.
Okay. So I'm glad I asked that because I did not know. All right. Well, anything else that I should ask?
Oh, well, I mean, there's a lot. And I know people love to talk about acquiring. It's kind of like the sexy topic. If this comes out before NARPM Broker Owner, I am actually doing a presentation at NARPM Broker Owner. So come check that out. It's called The Millionaire Myth, How Anyone Can Acquire. So
I love it. Well, Stacy, if somebody has heard this pod and they're like, man, I need some help with my mindset, or I have a deal on the table. I need somebody to help me walk through this. What's the best way that they can reach out to you and contact you?
all right. So I have my website, stacysalyer.com, my email, stacy@stacysalyer.com. And it's Stacy.
Stacy is Stacey.
Yep. Yep. And it's Salyer, Salyer. So I'm sure it'll probably be all in the show notes. But yeah, you can find my podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And I'm on all the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can find
And
me.
has a really good newsletter. So you should sign up for that one as well.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
So Stacy, thank you so much for being here. If you are listening to this and you get value and you're not a NARPM member, please go to narpm.org or call them at 800-782-3452. We'd love to have you become a member. They are working on NARPM 2.0, where they are offering so much value, including data, legislative, and a new marketplace that they're going to be unveiling. And if you need a VA to help you when you buy these new companies and you need some help to because you're growing, go to vpmsolutions.com or shoot me an email. I love to hear from my tens of listeners. Pete@vpmsolutions.com. Stacy, thanks so much for being here. See you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.